Hi, it's Monday, it's 3 o'clock. Welcome to Together Unlocked, brought to you as always by Together 2012. We're a community interest company based in the main Paralympic host borough of Newham. I'm Ju Gosling. With me in my East London studio, where she's been locked down for over 12 months now, is Julie Newman. She's the chair of Together 2012. I'm the artistic director, and we're both disabled artists. We're going to give you some audio description in a minute and tell you what's coming up in today's live stream. But first, over to the other end of our long virtual wheeled sofa to the West Midlands for some introductions and audio description.
No.
Hi, new hosts, you said. Hi, I'm Josh Surgener. I'm one of the hosts of Together Unlocked, and I'm also a PhD student. For my audio description, I've got rather long blonde hair, and today I'm wearing a very bright kind of rainbow tie-dye swirled sweatshirt, and you can't really see it because there's a mic stand in the way, but it says "You can do better" in white writing written across the chest.
Yes, fabulous. It's like a Catherine wheel.
Yeah, very much. Got purple on the other arm as well.
Hi, I'm Tracy Surgeon, and I just keep popping up on different days. I am sitting in our studio in Sutton Coldfield with our red velvet curtains behind us. I've got long blonde hair, and I'm wearing a bit of another sort of boohoo chic top that's got some big bold sections on it. So I've got some purple with some beige circles. I've got some beige with some white squirrels. Yeah, just keep it going. And I'm wearing a pair of brown swirly trousers to match. And I really like Joshua's sweatshirt. I think I'll have to get myself one as well.
Yes, if it wasn't for the absent Robin, also known as Angry Fish, I would say you guys are our style icons. I've been following Josh's style since he was 8, and I first saw the flashing wheels on his wheelchair, and I've had a pair exactly the same on mine ever since. Even managed to get a grant, it has to be said, but that is another story. And Tracy is going to be using all of her fashion know-how a bit later on in App Date when we're looking at repurposing fashion apps for costume design in the age of COVID. But first, back to East London. Like I say, I'm Ju Gosling, also known as the artist Ju90. I have a self-styled hennaed corona crop, hidden as I intend to continue to hide it for as long as possible this year, having done, I think last year was So Home Haircut, this year is the year of the hats. And today I have a lovely hand knitted pink hat in shades of pink, going from a sort of cerise at the bottom to a paler one over the crown. This is one of the hats that's recently been knitted for us by our wonderful friend, the talented craft artist Alison Walker in Scotland. I finally managed to get one, Alison, because I didn't tell Julie this one had arrived. So I'm also wearing a bright cerise t-shirt to celebrate the fact that this is still International Women's Month. On it, it says Superwoman in that kind of Superman style writing. And there is a picture of a woman in the developing world carrying weight, as always, above her head in like a big basket that you'd usually carry food in. And there is Superman sort of railing away, pretty much impotent to do anything, being carried along. I've also got pale olive skin, green eyes behind black plastic glasses, black plastic wrist braces, and silver coloured jewellery. And our backdrop, you can see a little bit of the famous Together 2012 graffiti banner. You can see more of that on our website, but it's covered in images of all the different art forms we cover during a year, from drama, dance, music, visual arts, carnival art, street art, photography, poetry, spoken word, and much, much more. And we'll cover as many of those art forms as we can in the space of the next hour. Also behind us is a teddy bear dressed in sailing clothes and wearing a gold plastic medal. He is taking part in the International Virtual Bear Hunt. And as we won last week's Clockwork Paralympics, is also our medal bearer for the week. So, last but by no means least, Julie, who are you? What do you look like?
Medal bear.
A medal bear, yes.
I'm Julie. I'm the chair of Together 2012. I'm, by comparison,
Julie, you're very quiet for us. I don't know if your mic's.
Try that.
There we go.
That's better.
Sheer folly on my part. I can only apologise. I had got so excited I forgot to turn my microphone on. Yes, I was saying about a medal bear, but I am, by comparison to my colleagues, very dull today. I'm not colourful at all, but I like to think of myself as being quite serious. So I have my black beret on top of my springy out gold and silver hair, which continues like Josh's to grow. I have dark rimmed glasses. I'm wearing a blue long sleeved t-shirt. I have various bits of silver jewellery popping up on different parts of me.
Well, silver coloured anyway, she
Silver
says, is the
coloured, sure.
person who bought most of it. I don't want to give you false impressions of how much I was able to spend. And I believe you're also wearing blue because it is International Autism Awareness Week. So we're going to come on to that in just a minute. First, on a Friday, we recommend things you can do for the weekend online or offline and mostly free. Did any of you take up the suggestions from Friday?
Well, I kept a very close eye on the removal of this ship in the Suez Canal with my Bob the Builder hat on, and found it fascinating. It's just I've learnt so much over the weekend, watching various national, international sort of efforts to free this ship.
And of course, in more usual times, your studio is on the banks of the Thames, isn't it?
That's right, and I think with the.
Do you want to tell us a bit about it?
I will, yes, for sure. But I think with the coming of the full moon, the tides rise, and that was what I found quite interesting because I have a small ship's wheelhouse, which has been taken from a cargo ship some time ago, so many years ago, and donated through the Museum of London to Trinity Buoy Wharf, and that's my darling little studio. It's right up against the Thames wall, which is, as you know, for most of us, the main river that feeds London. It goes right the way through London, or comes right the way through London to the sea in Kent and Essex.
And you're opposite the O2, aren't you?
I'm opposite.
Because I was thinking, I think it's so wide at that point, the chances of a ship suddenly getting stuck between your studio and the O2. But
well, no, because the river is very, very tidal at that point, and I've been stuck. I was when I was racing many years ago. The Thames-based racing clubs have a contest, a sort of like
sailing,
a sailing contest,
not mud racing.
I was in my little access boat and doing very, very well until I got stuck in the mud. Then it all went horribly wrong, and it was just opposite the O2. But no, it was a great adventure actually sailing on the Thames itself. It's not something I'd done before. And I've only ever done it subsequently in bigger boats with other people.
So that was your weekend. Well, I spent the weekend doing all sorts of things, but I did put Radio 6 on to my radio in the kitchen because that was Robin's recommendation. Robin, also known as Angry Fish, is the third of our Surgeonate co-hosts, and he can't be with us today. But I was really surprised. I don't think I've ever listened to Radio 6 before. And the first few songs, I thought, oh, I really don't like this. But again, I really took on board what Robin was saying about there's always something different all the time. And in the course of the weekend, I got to the point of thinking, I might just keep the kitchen radio permanently onto BBC Six. So I very much hope that other people got something out of the recommendations as well. Did you follow any of them up?
I did both of the things that I recommended. But I mean, Six is definitely like that. I think if anyone starts listening to it, you'll always find it plays great music until you turn it on and somebody's never listened to it before. It's like in the car or like over for a cup of tea, and it plays the weirdest things you'd ever heard. It's almost guaranteed, and they're like, "What are you listening to?" And you're like, "Trust me, it gets better." And then you give it 5 minutes. I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is a great song." But yeah, it's almost a rule that the first few tracks you're a bit like, okay, but yeah, no, but yeah, we both love Six, me and Dad, and then yeah, I did both of my things that I'd recommended, so I had a nice weekend as well.
And what was that, Josh?
So it was the Six Nations, the France v Scotland match that was quite exciting. Lots of red cards and yellow cards and all sorts of things. And then the start of the Formula One season, which was a great race. It was really, really exciting. It was really, really close as well. So
yeah, there were a few gasps at various points of the Grand Prix last night, and we were like, oh, yeah, it was quite fun to watch the first one.
Yeah, do you know, it hadn't occurred to me before, but I guess there must be so many keen amateur or semi-professional sports photographers who've just been devastated the last year, because if you can't get to the trackside, then you can't take your pictures. And if you're not a full-time professional living in the local area, you're not going to get to the trackside, because that's something that so many people get out of it, isn't it? That spectacle. So did you do any of the things recommended, Tracy? And did you have a lovely birthday? Because it was your birthday yesterday.
I did. I had a lovely day yesterday, actually. Yeah, surrounded by beautiful flowers that were sent and wonderful presents that were sent. And last year for my birthday, because again it was locked down, I bought myself a photo frame, you know, the family ones you can get with all the different squares and you fill it with different photos. And my request was that I wanted Rob and the kids to fill it with photos. They didn't do that last year. So when they said, "What do you want for your birthday?" I said, "The same as I wanted last year." So Robin gave me a few things and the kids gave me some things. And then he pulled the photo frame out and I was in tears. I was like, "Oh, it is so nice." And yeah, it was lovely. And then although we got everything in to have a nice chicken dinner, we decided to have a takeaway. And I love Chinese, so we had a Chinese banquet. So yeah, I was very spoiled actually. It was lovely.
Yeah, my favourite cuisine is Chinese food, and we're still not at a point where we sort of feel safe enough to get takeaways. But yeah, that's definitely one of the top priorities on my list. So it's weird, isn't it, when you come up to thinking, oh, it's going to be my second birthday in lockdown, my second birthday shielding.
Yeah.
And how much fun it can be. I mean, I had a Zoom birthday party last year and had people from all over the world popping in. You think, well, you'd never have done that usually.
No.
Although we'll carry on doing that in the future. Yes, I feel like if we had another year of lockdown, I'd finally get around to doing all the things that I meant to do. You know, I think we've still got 2 books to write, all of the archiving to do, all of the blah, blah, blah to do. You know, lots and lots of sorting out left to come. If you're like us and don't expect to be going anywhere very soon and expect to be being very, very careful for at least another 12 months, we've got much more fun things to do, though, than just tidying up, which is the other reason it hasn't got done yet. So moving on to our regular Monday feature update. Oh no, before we move on to updates, sorry, Julie, sitting there in blue, National Autism Awareness Week.
Indeed.
International, I should say. Were you saying it's a UN?
It is. It's one of the UN health identified associated days of awareness.
And the actual day is Friday, which is a bit, is that right?
It's the second,
yes, which is a bit unfortunate.
I thought that was Thursday.
Does anybody know? No, Thursday's definitely the 1st.
Monday's the 5th. I know that for a fact.
Here we are, everybody.
But yeah, Thursday's the 2nd. I had to count backwards from when I knew that what I knew was the date on one day, and I counted back. Yeah,
So it's the second.
yeah.
Right. So the day itself for celebrating the awareness, and which is being promoted by the various organisations, including the United Nations, is
Sorry, I just pulled up the calendar for everybody at home. We're all right. They're wrong. Thursday's the 1st.
Ah.
I can't count.
Oh, you don't have to these days. People like me who've got no sense of time as a result of impairment just click on that jolly old calendar. So, unfortunately, the actual day clashes this year with Good Friday. And that's another reason to really put the focus on the week as a whole. And what were you telling me the theme is this year, Julie?
it's the awareness in the workplace. It's about employment challenges and opportunities in the workplace post pandemic. But if I could just say, on the 8th of April, which is next week, there's a UN led day of discussion about the rights of people who have been diagnosed or actually experiencing autism. And it's looking at the sustainable development goals, and also looking at the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. Article 29 is about a right to employment. And that will be coming from the UN. It's all in the American Times, so I haven't actually translated that, but we can do something about that next week. Put it up in the highlights page.
I don't think we will, because we won't be back until the Friday. Because, of course,
Okay,
this
right.
is the penultimate Together Unlocked. As you know, lockdown started easing this morning. Our funding runs out this week for our live captions and our extra staffing resources. But as I said, none of us are going anywhere. So we will still be back on Fridays with a new show called Something for the Weekend. Something I wanted to highlight around International Autism Awareness Week that I know is an issue for some of our artists and many other disabled artists is the number of women who aren't being diagnosed and who are receiving borderline personality disorder diagnoses, mental health diagnoses. And then when people don't respond to so-called treatment, they're seen as the kind of architects of their own problems, and nobody understands that they have autism, because if you're a neurodiverse woman, surprise surprise, you don't present as like a neurodiverse man. So I think those two things should be thought about together. Most organisations of any size will already have neurodiverse people in the workplace, whether they're recognised or not. And I think it's an opportunity not just to think about people on the spectrum, but all neurodiverse people. But yeah, I think, and all I can say, if you're a woman out there who feels your mental health diagnosis does not describe you, and nor does your borderline personality disorder, there's some very, very helpful information on the Autism Society website about how to get a diagnosis. There's more and more women writing about their experiences of autism, so it can be worth looking up those articles, seeing if any of those things chime with you, and don't let anybody stop you. And I think there's always there's always advantages to having the correct diagnosis, and the key one, of course, is that your access needs are met. But also, if you're having a meltdown because everything is just too much, it's much easier for people just to back off if they know you're neurodiverse, and the kind of atrocities and the sort of forced sectionings and the police and the things that happen are much less likely to happen if you've got that correct diagnosis. Because if you've got a mental health diagnosis and you have a meltdown, you're assumed to be psychotic, and the next thing you know, you are sectioned. And that's happened, unfortunately, to more than one of our regular participants. So, and just, yeah, I know it sounds really cheesy, but so I won't say kind of big love out there to all you other neurodiverse artists. But it is a week to celebrate, not just a week to raise awareness, because we're all as good as everybody else. So, and that is a really key message. Moving on, we're not here on Friday because, of course, it's a bank holiday. So, after app date, which we're going to come on to, we're also going to do a little bit of art with Stera. But tell us about this app, Tracy, and how people who would usually be going around charity shops and things and yeah, just fashion shopping, looking for ideas for costumes, can repurpose it.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking for something that I could do that didn't take a lot of hands-on work. And as you said, you can't go to charity shops and pick up things and upcycle things at the moment, which is, it's a bit of a shame when you want to be creative. So I had a little look, and it's a base level app. It's not it's a free app as well, and it's called Project Makeover. I was thinking Unique Makeover, but it's Project Makeover. And basically, the app that I'm using at the moment it focuses on smaller projects. So it'll focus on a restaurant or a garage, or there's different ones. But what I found really good in it, and I think the more I use it, because I've only started looking at it over the weekend, you get to strip everything back completely and start again with the decor, the surroundings, and then you go on to the people and you can do their clothes and their styling. And I thought, if someone was doing, and I'm just finding it good fun to be able to do something a little bit more creative, that's quite easy for me to do, touch, just use my thumbs, which is, quite good for me. But it sort of takes away that, well, I've done these things in the past, and you layer it with pictures and you colour them, and it's labour intensive. I just wanted something a bit more light-hearted. But I think it would be really good for maybe students that are doing art and design or theatre art. It's a great way of looking at different styles of things, trying out different styles, hats, accessories, without needing to go out and pick them all up. And spend hours drawing. If you love drawing, then why not? But I'm not the best at drawing, so I found this app to be quite really interesting, but also quite quirky and quite fun. So yeah, having fun
Yeah,
with
I
it.
might give it a go myself because although for obvious reasons they're not operating at the moment, we have an associate wheelchair dance company, Folk in Motion, and we upcycle all of those clothes. And what I realize is that there's a sort of course you can go and buy secondhand clothes on the internet, but then you've got to know what you want. And I think that's the other part of this app, isn't it? Instead of looking at the racks of charity shops for inspiration, you look at the app for inspiration, you try different things on the app, you get the look that you want. Find your actor's size and maybe add a size if you because that's something I've realized that people very often don't tell you their real size till they're complaining they can't get their costumes on,
Yeah.
and then set out on the internet to kind of find really kind of cheap versions of those clothes.
Yeah.
Just out of interest, what have you been designing for yourself?
Both on my app or generally.
Yeah, was it a fantasy?
At the moment, I've just gone on to a new one, and it's sort of quite gothic. So it's a gothic room with candles and really like a steampunk sort of dress. Which if I was able to stand and walk, that's the sort of style I think I'd wear. But you can't get away with it in a wheelchair. So the makeup, the accessories, the clothing, I'm just like, I love this. I'm really enjoying it.
I'm desperate to have that conversation that goes wheelchair users are already halfway there in terms of steampunk because we've got our own not very
Yeah.
well designed machines, Yes, let's not even go there either. But that sounds fascinating.
You don't get a lot of options. It is an entry level app, But for me at the moment, that's fine. And then I might look into getting a more detailed one that might come with a little bit of a price that would give me more options. But at the moment, there's quite a lot of things to do on this one. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's good.
And I think again, if you've got a cast of characters and you want to go, well, what would happen if they had a red top and they had red trousers and they had a green top? And it's much easier just to play around with it when you can't have those kind of costume fitting sections and
And
things.
you can do hair, you can do the makeup, so it covers most, all of the things that you would do if you were actually in the theatre with the cast trying it. Instead of trying all that makeup, I can just press a button. But
Yeah,
it's
we
good.
must pass it on to the artist Hazel Brill, who leads our
Mm.
youth program 2 days a week. And just to flag up, Hazel runs various Facebook groups, Instagram pages. She does one-to-one support where you can do the Arts Award program with her. So if you're any age up to and including 25 and you'd like to be put in touch with Hazel, just drop us a line at info@together2012.org.uk. We're going to move on, like I say, because we're not here on Friday, it being a bank holiday. So Stara Plurger, our regular presenter, is just going to show us in a short film some craft she did for Mother's Day, but also very relevant for this time of year, whether you're celebrating Easter, Passover, or just sending somebody a birthday card. So here is Stera.
Hi, I'm Stara, and this is Merlot. And I painted flowers. And here's Merlot. Bye.
So I just wanted to audio describe that for anybody who couldn't see it. Stara started off with her assistance dog Merlot, who's a black lab, standing in the woods where in fact, we saw on their virtual walk last Wednesday, they've had lots of daffodils coming through. And then we had photos of Stara cutting up an egg box and very cleverly using the sort of bits that stand up inside and cutting them out, and they're like daffodil heads. And so she painted those yellow. She cut out a card for stalks. And then she mounted the whole thing on black sugar paper and used those sort of letter stickers to print Happy Mama's Day. And then we just saw her very sweetly on a Zoom call to her mother, holding up the card so her mother could see the card. I just thought that was, as always, because Stara regularly presents inclusive creative activities that you can use at any level, including fine art. I thought that was so clever. Did you want to say something, Julie?
I just thought it was enchanting. I loved the thought behind it. I thought the bird song all the way through was wonderful. But it was a bit like, Tracy, some of the stuff you've been doing, using very, very simple materials and yet creating something which is actually very, very eye-catching and quite lovely.
And in terms of fine art, you've only got to look at the poppies at the Tower of London
Mm.
And something that struck me is once you'd cut those egg box shapes out, if you'd got just a short stick or something, something very thin, you could poke sticks through. I
Mm.
mean, on our highlights and links page from, I think it's the Friday before last, we have a range of different flowers that Tracy showed us how to make this month. So I think we started off, didn't we, with the rosettes that you showed us how to
Yeah.
make, and then the bunches of foliage which look more like lilac.
Yeah.
I'll put links back to those in our highlights and links page today. That's published about 5 o'clock. It's on our website under and linked to the main Together Unlocked TV page. And what we do is we put direct links to everything we discuss, any photographs we use, any videos, and anything else will all be on that page so that you can follow these activities up.
Mm.
So Stera's video will be up there as well. I mean, did you have any other suggestions for just easy things people can do if they're going to create some kind of Easter card? Because I think these days, although lots of people are looking forward to
Mm.
meeting up outside, that's still really going to be a minority, isn't it? We
Yeah,
can't
it's
go and see
still
everyone
gonna.
we know over the space of one weekend when it's limited to 2 households or 6 people outdoors. Well, we won't be going anywhere because we're not fully protected by the vaccine.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to be able to make something like a card that you can hold up on a Zoom call, because I'm certainly
Yeah.
got Zoom calls planned.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
with the using the painted egg cartons for the flowers worked really effectively.
Mm.
Well, I think you could paint them lots of different colours to do different flowers.
Mm.
And I was kind of really amazed at how certainly the angle at the end, it's kind of the side on, how effective
Mm.
an upside down egg cart. And I was like, that looks exactly like what that flower looks like.
Yeah.
So I think there's lots of other flowers that have that kind of similar shape, that kind of pyramid-y design.
Yeah.
If you paint them kind of red, purple, blue, yellow, all of a sudden you can make this probably quite effective and quite cool looking bouquet,
Mm.
and you get an omelette out of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, like tulips, you could
That was it,
quite
just-
easily make tulips.
Yeah, tulips are the purple ones, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think that's what I was
Lots of
thinking, but I didn't want to
colours.
say it in case it was wrong.
Yeah, well, actually, you can get all sorts of coloured tulips. I was
Yeah.
thinking of them as red, but I've got purple ones coming through in the garden at the moment.
Yeah.
Yes, and like I was saying, I don't know if everybody remembers the installation at the Tower of London where it was poppies crafted, and of course they were crafted in a much, well, not actually that expensive a way, and they weren't particularly kind of difficult in their construction, but it was very much a fine art installation.
Mm.
We have a clubs program, which is a year-round program. At the moment, it takes place on Zoom and on by telephone, but we pay for the calls in terms of the telephone groups. Clubs run on weekday mornings and they're open to any disabled person who can access them and anybody they want to have with them. And what we focus on a Tuesday, as in tomorrow, is very much that kind of thing, accessible, inclusive craft techniques that anybody can do, but you still have the potential to use in fine art. And at the moment, they're working on weaving with scraps of found material, making looms out of the backs of cereal packets or off the side of a cardboard box. And they're doing fine art collages again with scraps and recycled paper. So that's just a couple of the examples of things that are a bit less seasonal. But with the sunshine tomorrow being, well, in fact, we need to give a heat wave warning in the south east and hopefully also the Midlands over the next 2 days. The heat is going to get up into the 20s. If, like us, you've got dogs, don't let them wander out and sit in the sunshine without noticing where they are, because you can indeed get heat stroke.
Yeah.
Julie, I know you wanted to move on and talk about digital portfolios as lockdown is ending.
Or digital and actual portfolios. I've been talking to Alison and Hazel, Alison Marchant, our international artist, and Hazel Brill, our youth worker.
Can I
About
just say, because we're all international artists in a way, but Alison is our club's program manager. We're all part time. Like I say, we're an artist led organisation, so we're part time, so we're able to continue with our own practice as well. Alison is an installation artist who absolutely and deservedly has an international reputation. But in this context, she is there to run our club's program, and in particular the art club and the poetry club. So sorry, Julie, I just wanted to clarify if anybody was new to the show.
well, she also, I think, by virtue of her experience, is able to feed that in to the clubs that she leads for sure. And we were talking about the club's work over the last year during this period of lockdown, or certainly during the period of pandemic. And we were talking about all the different activities that people had done during the club's programs. And there is just a wealth of, of work there. I mean, it's a phenomenal amount of work. We didn't start the poetry club again until a little bit later. I think it was June. So we haven't got quite a full
Well,
year.
the poet, I was doing this for a report. We started the pop-up poetry club, I think, back in June, July by phone, and then the art club and the other clubs returned in October. But before that, what we were offering to regular participants when we closed last March was that people took home bags of art materials and craft materials and notebooks and things, and people worked one-to-one with Alison and Hazel until the autumn. So yes, I think they've got things that they've done in the clubs and things that people have just done at home anyway.
Indeed. What I was going to say is I think people use the program, the Together program, the weekly program, as a guide.
The schedule, you mean?
Yes, I suppose so.
So that they've done things at the time, they've done things at the same time we would have had physical
Yeah,
clubs till they restarted.
that's what I was about to say, actually. The sort of like, I think people used it as a diary, as a way of marking the days. And I think that's been quite important for some people, because certainly once we got through the first period of lockdown, days can become very similar. So we need to find ways of marking time without feeling overwhelmed by it or miserable about it, but sort of like excited and inspired by it. And I think that using the Together Diary Week has been very helpful for people. What we found when I was talking to Alison as the program's leader was that when she talked to people individually about the work that they've been doing over the last year, they've just got masses, absolutely masses. So she's been thinking creatively and working creatively with people about how to store it and how to display it and how to sort of put it on display. I know.
So for viewers because obviously lots of people don't come to our clubs or even necessarily join in our program from home, but you've been doing art and craft at home. What are the basic guidelines for creating a portfolio?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was thinking more broadly at this point. I was thinking about things like some people have done pom-poms and they've created dolls out of it. So, for example, one of our participants has got a box with loads, over 30 dolls that she's made, and she's carefully wrapped them in bubble wrap and stored them carefully so that they don't get dusty. Another of our participants has used pom-poms and has them on display. She's got them on the wall, and she's created a wonderful little landscape of pom-poms. So I think there's...
So photographing that, because at some point, obviously, you don't want to live with your lockdown art or any kind of art for the rest of your life, but photographs of those installations and then packing those pom-poms away, like you say, using something like, well, I would recommend tissue paper if people have got tissue paper, but if you've got bubble wrap that's come in from other things, the only thing you need to be careful about with bubble wrap is which side you use, because, and I think it's the flat side doesn't leave marks marks, but the bubbly side can leave marks. I
Mm.
found that out the hard way when I had to have an entire set of light boxes repainted because somebody had put the bubble wrap on the wrong way round and they were a bit damp because they'd just come in from outside in the rain. And by the time they came out of storage, they'd got little round circles all over them. So if you
Oh,
do
no.
get any deliveries in tissue paper, that's well worth saving. And also boxes in delivery, because you're right, a kind of portfolio can be all sorts of things. It can be a box of objects, it can be what
Mm.
will come on to how you might store paintings.
Yeah.
But yes, it's so important, and don't think nobody's going to care. People will be studying the pandemic in 100 years' time.
Mm.
Relatives, if you don't have kids, there's still going to be people who really want to know what their great great aunt or uncle got up to. You know, it matters so much. It's very much part of our history as disabled people. People are going to look back and see more disabled people dying in the last 12 months, even than died in the Holocaust. This is really, really important. So treasure what you've produced over lockdown. Photograph it. If you can keep it carefully. Make sure, if you've got something like a social media account, upload those images so that they're there for posterity. And also share it with the people that you've not seen for a while. There must be all sorts of family, friends, they're not digitally connected. As things open up a bit, or you find different ways to communicate, or people get online, show them what you've been doing. It's probably going to inspire them to do the same. We know lots of people have started doing creative work for the very first time. I'm sure you're going to carry on, but it's still really important to keep the beginnings. So, what's your suggestion in terms of storing paintings and drawings if you haven't got access to professional portfolios?
Um, well, again, I think a box rather than a plastic bag. Um, I think if you've got a box that's big enough to take your artwork, try to create some order with it, and do it sort of sequentially. Do it according to perhaps the first thing you did at the bottom, or the other way around, although that's more difficult. But I think actually try to keep some sort of um, some sort of order with it, and possibly on the back put the date on it, because you're going to forget. After you've done 6 months worth of weekly drawings, or even less than weekly drawings,
So are we talking, Julie, maybe doing like a scrapbooking sort of thing as a catalogue of
Well, you could.
remembering
And if I could
where
just
you've
say, I
been?
think what we've got to do is we've got to work with what people have got at the moment in their
Yeah.
homes. And I think that's something to aspire to. And that was certainly something that I was going to raise. I think as well, you can get like a ring binder,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get the plastic envelopes to put
Mm.
things in. But I don't think at the moment, I don't think people are necessarily going to be able to access that if they don't, especially if they don't have access to online shopping.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky because I've got an Amazon Prime subscription, so I don't pay anything for delivery. But I
Mm.
think when you do pay things for delivery, it can really cost money.
Yeah.
We had, because at Together 2012, we've always embedded recycling on account of the fact we have to raise every penny we spend and use ourselves. And we had a great artist portfolio donated to us. And somebody had found a couple of pieces of old plywood, and because if you see the portfolios, they are expensive, but they're basically just great big folders.
Mm.
And they'd use two pieces of plywood, and I think just gaffer taped them
You could
at the bottom so that now, if you want to put more paintings or pictures into a portfolio, you need to make it a bit wider at the bottom. You don't want to just tape the two bits together because, again, a big old stiff cardboard box of the sort of things that a fridge or a cooker comes in, if you see one of those, is really good for sort of turning into a portfolio.
Mm.
I think it's about experimenting. I'm not an expert in these things, and it depends on what you've got at home. But if you can find a way to just create a little bit more space at the bottom, then
Mm.
something as simple as that with a bit of string tied around it.
Or cardboard. You could use cardboard in a similar
Yeah,
way.
absolutely. Well, that's what I was saying about cardboard boxes or
Mm.
pieces of ply. I mean, not many people are going to have pieces of
No.
plywood around, but again, it's that kind of thing. You know, sometimes the back of something
Mm.
that you finished with can be really handy.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
it's about just sort of repurposing. If you have cable ties and a drill, then look no further because you can just link all these things together with cable ties.
But I think, as Tracy's saying, it's good to be aspirational, and there will come a point, perhaps in the future, when you want to actually create some sort of order or something like a little book or something that you can look back on.
Mm.
And I think remember the principles of decoupage that Alison has been so enthusiastic about. You can decorate the outside of these things. It doesn't have to look like a bit of cardboard or a bit of plywood or something. And scrapbooking itself is a massive activity and a massive hobby for people. The other thing that I was starting to explore was digital files, and I was thinking, Josh, particularly for you, because I'm mindful that you've done a lot of digital drawing, sketching, and it's possible to get educational based, therefore quite cheap digital filing systems, which I'm going to explore and look at in more detail. I haven't had an opportunity before today to do so, but that is around. And again, if you do a search for digital filing or digital apps, filing apps, then you can see what might work for you. But I was thinking particularly, Josh, because I was very impressed at your sketching, and I know you were starting to explore the digital sketching, and that's something that shouldn't be lost.
Mm.
As a documenter, I'm just going to say very briefly, and then I'll wind down. But as a documenter, I think what you were saying, Ju, about history is absolutely critical. This is a unique period in our lifetimes that we haven't had anything in our lifetimes like it, and at this point in time, we have access potentially to quite a lot of digital
Mm.
storage and digital sort of communications and so on and so forth. So, for example, our Together Unlocked shows will become part of a digital archive for Together. And everything that's accompanying them will go into that archive.
I mean, I was just thinking in terms of another way to do a digital portfolio is just to set up something like a Facebook page.
Mm.
And if you're somebody who's new to the internet since the pandemic, then using Facebook can be one of the easiest ways just to log what you've done, or Instagram. If it's about photographing the things that you've done, set up an Instagram account, because these things are completely free.
Mm.
If you want to have a website, you're usually going to end up paying a little bit, but not necessarily very much a year if you really shop around. And the WordPress website design software is very, very easy to use. You don't have to be able to design a website. To design a website, you just have to use WordPress, which has got some limitations, but masses and masses of possibilities. But if all of that just sounds too much, then for now, if it's in a box, all of those things can be done later.
Mm.
And label the box so that it doesn't get thrown out by accident. We're always the worst at valuing our own work, but I promise you, people will value it in the future. Did you have anything to add, Josh, about any kind of suggestions or anything?
The only thing I was thinking, kind of on digital storage stuff, um, you know, the Instagrams and things sound like great ideas and great things to do. If you don't want to do that, or if you just want extra peace of mind, um, an external hard drive or even cloud storage, if you've got the internet to upload stuff. Obviously, it depends on what you're working with. If they're kind of digital images, it's going to be a lot easier. If you're a filmmaker, cloud storage is going to fill up quickly and take a long time to upload stuff. Certainly, if it's anything with any length to it. But yeah, kind of external hard drives. now, the technology has advanced so much that fairly large storage devices are fairly inexpensive. I'm not going to say they're cheap because they're not. But you can get a terabyte hard drive for, I mean, probably about 35 pound. I mean, you know,
Yeah, I
35
think
pounds, 35 pound. You know, if you haven't got it, you haven't got it. But actually,
I
for
was going to
for
say,
the
I think that's
size,
a really
oh, go
good
on.
idea because you wouldn't need that kind of size. You know, again, if you're new to digital work and you just store photographs, you don't need
No.
an external hard drive, but a stick. You know, you can get a 68 gig, 128 gig stick for less than 30 quid.
Yeah.
They're, yeah, I mean, that's much, much bigger than any external hard drive even 10 years ago. I think the other thing I would say, because when we meet in physical venues, what we had was a lot of people who had one stick and used the internet cafe. And I was always very concerned that people didn't have a backup, that every single thing they owned digitally was on that stick. So that's the other thing to say is if you're going to keep things digital and it's not going to go somewhere like Instagram or Facebook, but it's just going to stay at home, make sure you've got a backup.
and keep it safe, keep it labeled somewhere, like you were saying. I think in times to come, I think all of us will be surprised when we look back at the things that we were able to do, at our own creativity, but also how we were able to share with other people during what was potentially and what still is potentially a period of isolation. And it's surprising how much people have been able to share. I think, you know, the human sort of psyche always comes out. You know, we're social animals in the main, and we do find ways of connecting with each other.
And
Yeah.
like I say, just because a lockdown has started to ease today, we are not going anywhere, and neither is Together. And in fact, we'll be reaching out more after Easter. We're going to have a new blog on the Disability Arts online website. So anybody producing poetry and artwork in the clubs or joining in from home is going to have that showcase as well as our website. We're hoping to recruit more widely for the clubs after Easter. So if you haven't joined our clubs before, please do think about it. We have some policies which you can read on our website under About Us. But what you'll see is we don't spend a lot of time talking about personal details. You know, it's not cliquey, it's not a social group, these are arts groups. And what we like to do is find our own voice as artists, encourage you to find your voice as artists, and get to know each other as artists. So there's no reason whatsoever to feel that you've got to share personal information that you don't want to share, or you're going to have to get to know a whole load of new people and you don't really want to get to know new people. You will very much be welcomed in that sort of creative setting. The clubs are being cut down because of screen fatigue from 2 hours to one. So they really are very, very manageable. And the poetry group, which we'll tell you more about on Wednesday, is an hour and a half. And again, it's a phone group. You don't have to show your face. And if you don't want to show your face at art clubs or any other club, you don't have to. It's fine to have your camera switched off. As long as we know who you are and you're a genuine participant, which is something we can do away from the clubs, then you don't have to expose yourself if you don't want to, or indeed even use your full name. So if you're interested in joining in from home with us, there's lots more information on the website, and we'll tell you more on Wednesday. Was there anything else you wanted to add to all of that, Julie?
No, other than somebody was saying that we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we've done. We're very, very harsh judging ourselves, I think, generally speaking, especially as disabled people, because everybody's so quick to do it. So, you know, sort of try to do the putting away safely without judgment. and just say, okay, I'm going to put it to one side. I'll look at it in 6 months' time, or I'll look at it in a year, and I think you'll be amazed.
Yeah, I think that's often the case, isn't it? You have to give yourself several years to look back before you can appreciate, just what's there. And in fact, if you're new to the arts, you may not realize what your work shows, not just in terms of potential, but in terms of actual quality, because we're all taught to hold ourselves to these impossible standards and compare ourselves to just a few people, whereas we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to anybody. But there's such a big range of artists out there. I mean, I used to find trips out to art galleries so inspiring, partly because you go, oh, isn't this wonderful? I could never do that. Oh, isn't this wonderful? I could never do that. And then you get into, God, that's rubbish. I could do much better than that. So it's sort of educating and empowering at the same time, which is the other reason to have a look at a whole range of artwork. So we're nearly out of time today because it's a Monday. We're going to finish, as always, with Relax with Arwa. But coming up on Wednesday, we have the very last of Josh's sports and gaming report. We have poems from the Pop-Up Poetry Club on the theme of flowers.
Indeed.
If you want to join in from home, we would love to see your poems on Wednesday, when we'll be reading poems from the club and revealing next week's theme. We will also have the Clockwork Paralympics, which will be back on a Friday after Easter by popular demand, and much, much more. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from us in East London.
It's goodbye
And
from the
goodbye
West
from
Midlands.
us.
And we'll put on Relax with Arwa. We're going to put in the highlights and links page the link to Arwa's yoga channel. If you would like to relax with Arwa on an ongoing basis, that's up every Saturday. But for now, this is the last Relax with Arwa on Together Unlocked. And we'd like to thank you again, Arwa, and wish you all the very best in the future.
Imagine that you are you're in your favorite place and you have all your family and all your friends are next to you, and the lockdown is over, completely over. Life is back to normal. So, what will you do? What the first thing that you would do when we come out of lockdown? Will you go for a nice ride on the train? Will you go to the West End? Will you see your family? What will you do? Are you happy? Are you nervous? Are you in a good mood? How are you feeling? How are you feeling? Are you nervous about seeing people in real life? Not on Zoom anymore? Are you alright? Are you happy? Whatever you are doing, I want you to just picture yourself the second day out of lockdown. What are you doing? Are you on holiday? Are you in the Olympic Park? If I were you, I would go to the Olympic Park and just sit there for the whole day. That is my favorite place. I just create that one. Everything. And it did. So wherever you are, imagine it's very windy, that you are not afraid of the wind. So you know what? Because the special power is with you, is in your head, it's on your shoulders. It's looking after you during the lot that it's help you not feel sad, just be happy. So you're taking it for a walk. Wherever you are, you're taking it a walk. Breathe in, breathe out. The sun is shining and everybody is outside. And you go for a walk by yourself or with your sister or your brother. Just go for a walk, see nature and what it looked like. And the weather is nice and hot, not too hot, just right, the way you like it. And you might go for a swim in the water, and the water is feel really good on your skin. And you lay in the water. You just lay in the water. And you think to yourself, the lockdown is over. Life is that normal. The lockdown is over. Life would be back to normal. The lockdown is over. Life will be